This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
It's All Behave with Arden Moore, the show that teaches you how to have harmony in the household with your pets. Join Arden as she travels coast to coast to help millions better understand why cats and dogs do what they do. Get the latest scoop on famous faces, their perfectly pampered pets, and who's walking who in Rin Tin Tinseltown. From famous pet experts and best-selling authors to television and movie stars, you'll get the latest buzz from wagging tongues and tails. Garner great pet tips and have a doggone fur-flying fun time. So get ready for the pause and applause as we unleash your All Behave host, America's pet edutainer, Arden Moore.
Welcome to the All Behave Show on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Arden Moore. Now, our special guest has been dishing out great advice on how to bring out the best in our pets for decades. She's a major health ally for dogs and cats all over the globe. She is forever, yep, I said forever, focused on expanding pet knowledge. Her latest feat, it is a must-get book. It is called Yin and Yang 2.0 Nutrition for Dogs. Please welcome to our show the renowned holistic veterinarian, Dr. Judy Morgan. Welcome, Dr. Judy.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
All right. We're going to get this party started. Folks, I got the pleasure of meeting in person Dr. Judy. I guess it was back in 23 at the Global Pet Expo when I was limping with a torn meniscus. I'm happy to tell you I now have a new fake knee and I am back to walking, running, playing softball, taking my dogs for walks. It's been a miracle. But when I met you back then, you created a new pet day of the year, something to add to our calendar. And I want you to tell everybody first, what is June 22nd mean every year? Why should we be paying attention?
So June 22nd, I joined up with Bow Wow Labs to start Pet Choking Awareness Day. And it is amazing how many incidents of pet choking occur every year. And I worked in emergency medicine for 10 years. I worked in clinical practice for 36 years and saw so many choking incidents. And they were all preventable. And actually, I've had choking incidents with my own dogs that were
really
preventable. Yes. So it can happen to anyone, but it is preventable. And we feel that with more education and awareness, people will know what not to do, what to watch for. And once you know, you can't unknow.
Yes, thank you. That's a good quote. What you know, you can't unknow.
You can't unknow. And so you will be more aware and you'll know what to watch for. As a matter of fact, about 3 weeks ago, one of my dogs had a choking incident.
Okay, spill the beans.
It was just a dry cookie. I had made some cookies for them and it was a little dry and crumbly. And this was one of my brachycephalics, my one with the most pushed in face. And so the smallest throat and airway. And so she chowed down on, it was made with coconut flour, and she chowed down on the cookie and it broke apart. And then she sort of was inhaling it and getting it kind of gooey stuck in her throat. And so I saw what was happening, ran over and, scooped out of her mouth what I could and, kind of clapped her on the chest to get her to cough up. Well, since that time, so now we're about 3 weeks out, she actually went to the cardiologist today and was at the veterinarian last week because since then she's been blowing bubbles out her nose. And it only happens about once every 4 or 5 days, but she literally will be foaming out her nose. And
wow.
the last straw, about the third episode, she won't eat when this is happening. She's having too much trouble breathing. She's blowing bubbles. And so I'm running around the house trying to wipe her nose to keep her airway clean. And then she let out 2 of the biggest sneezes and this white, chunky stuff flew across the room. And I was like, there you go, solve the problem. You finally got it out of there.
Don't you wish it was the Hope Diamond, though?
I would have been so much better. But so that happened to me. I know what to watch for. And thankfully, I was there when I fed it to her and I saw it happen. So I know exactly what's going on.
But your point is this. It can happen to anyone, anytime.
On anything. A cookie. Literally a cookie that was just a little too dry for my brachycephalic dog.
And what is your dog's name who is a survivor? I'm a survivor.
Gabby.
Gabby. Okay.
So
gosh.
little Gabby, but because of blowing bubbles out her nose, she has a heart murmur. We're like, you know what? We're just going to go to the cardiologist and check that out and make sure that's nothing. And that was fine. So, but it is one of those things. And I think she solved the problem when she snorked out everything a few days ago. So hopefully we're done with that now.
Well, as you know, I'm a master instructor in pet first aid and CPR. I'm not a veterinarian. I don't play one on TV, but I work with a lot of great veterinarians like yourself. And I've taught thousands in pet first aid. We do it fun and all that. But you need to know that every class I teach, whether it's just for a basic class to people wanting a 16-hour class to be an instructor, every single one is being told about June 22nd, and every single one gets the link to your Prevent Choking website.
That's how we spread awareness.
Knowledge is power,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Knowledge is power. And so I'm glad Gabby's okay.
Just the stupid things.
And I will try not to blow any bubbles out of my nose for the rest of
Thank
this
you.
episode.
Yeah,
okay?
I get a little twitchy about it now.
Well, before we dive into the book, I want to dive into a little bit about yourself. A holistic vet. I love that you would take East and West and you blend. And I wish there were more integrative veterinarians out there. But I think maybe in 2024, finally, are people starting to realize that Eastern medicine and Western medicine, there's a place for both. And the benefactors could be our pets.
Many pet owners are waking up to it.
Okay.
Many veterinarians are still pushing back so hard.
Wow.
I'm in a couple of veterinary groups on social media that are just veterinarians in general. And man, the pushback is crazy. They complain about clients coming in and asking for titers. They really complain hard about people who are vaccine hesitant. They complain really hard about people who want to feed raw food or make their own food. So there is still just a ton of pushback in the veterinary community.
For the folks, some people, they get the notice, we got to come in and get our 18-year-old cat.
27 vaccinations.
27 vaccinations, and they never leave the house.
Titer. And there's a lot of discussion about this, when you talk to virologists and immunologists. I did a great interview with a homeopath yesterday, and we were talking about this. So a titer is a blood test that you can have done by your veterinarian. And basically that blood test, you can run different tests, but you can test whether your pet has antibodies for distemper or parvo or rabies or hepatitis or for feline distemper. So, and that titer, when it comes back, if it is showing that they have antibodies against the disease, it's sort of like being pregnant. You either are or you aren't. So either you have antibodies or you don't. And if they have antibodies, that means their immune system will recognize that virus if they are exposed to it, and it will build an immune response. Therefore, you don't need to get more pregnant. You don't need to get more vaccination on top of that. They're already protected. Now, there are some of the big immunologists and virologists will say that if they ever have a positive titer, that means their body responded to either an exposure or a vaccination. And if it responded once, it will always respond, even if you're titer. So if you had a positive titer and then 3 years later it comes back negative, that begs the question, well, now do I have to vaccinate or not have to vaccinate?
Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of the immunologists say, no, the body has what we call a memory response that we can't measure by a titer. And so those memory cells will kick in if they are exposed. So we don't have a way to measure that, but we know it's there. It's running around in the body. So they will still respond. But if you need to show proof that your pet is protected in order to get into boarding, daycare, grooming, training, whatever, a titer is a really good way to say, I don't want to give them more vaccines, because the more vaccines we give, the more autoimmune disease we see, the more allergies we see, the more inflammatory bowel disease, arthritis, kidney disease, you name it. And when you're talking about the kitty cats who never go outside, and I actually have 7 outdoor cats that patrol my barn, they each got 1 rabies vaccine, 1 distemper vaccine, and they are very well protected. And they're the healthiest cats I've ever had. they're raw fed. They're obligate carnivores. They are on a meat diet. And they are incredibly, incredibly healthy. One of them came home sick the other day. He had a temperature of 104.5. And so I put him on sub-Q fluids, and I gave him an anti-inflammatory for 2 days, kept him in the house for 4 days. He's out hunting with the rest of them and just as happy as can be. And the interesting thing is I don't have a license and I don't have a clinic here in North Carolina. When I retired from clinical practice, I said, that's it. So when I took him into the veterinary office, oh, okay.
You don't know who Dr. Judy Morgan is?
Yeah. Well, they do know who I am, which is kind of funny. And they know that I'm very holistic and that they're raw fed and that I don't vaccinate them past that first vaccine. And when she did his lab work, his white cell count was almost non-existent. And she said, oh my gosh, I'm so worried his white cells are wiped out. His immune system is really down. I'm like, no kidding. He's got a temperature of 104.5. So, and I said, no, I'm just going to give him fluids. I'm going to bring his temperature down. And if I have to, I'll force feed him because cats can't go longer than a couple of days without eating. And she wanted to put him on antibiotics. And I said, well, this is a virus. We know this is a virus because his white cells are wiped out. And she said, I know, but because his white cells are wiped out, that leaves him more open to bacterial infection. And I'm like, well, he's going to be isolated in my house in one room by himself.
Right.
He's not going to be exposed to any bacteria. And antibiotics don't work as a preventative. They treat an infection that you already have. So I said no to the antibiotics. And, this would be something for a client without a medical background.
Without a DVM after their name?
It'd be really hard for them to just walk in and say, no, I'm not taking those antibiotics. And my cat did fine without the antibiotics. And, oh God, my dog, when she choked and I took her in Gabby, when I took her in, again, lab work was perfectly normal, but the veterinarian wanted to put her on antibiotics. And she said, well, just in case she's got an infection up in her sinuses. And I'm like, she doesn't have an infection. There's nothing yellow. There's nothing green. It's clear bubbles that are coming out.
Clear bubbles.
So again,
And you looked at your champagne bottle and it's still got a cork in it. So everything's good.
So I said, again, so we have to, as pet parents, we have to educate ourselves. And that's really what my whole platform is about. It's education for pet parents.
Well, you are, you're known as the pet advocate. And I do, even though you're on our show and it's the longest running pet podcast on the planet, We'll Behave, I want everybody to go to your show, Naturally Healthy Pets Podcast, because knowledge is power. And I want to make my producer happy because I meant to do this earlier, but everybody, we are speaking with Dr. Judy Morgan, and we're going to take a quick break and dive in a little bit more. So everybody know the drill. You got to sit, stay. We'll be right back.
Time for a pause. 4 furry ones, actually. Sit and stay. Oh, Behave. We'll be right back.
Take a bite out of your competition. Advertise your business with an ad in Pet Life Radio podcasts and radio shows. There is no other pet-related media that is as large and reaches more pet parents and pet lovers than Pet Life Radio. With over 7 million monthly listeners, Pet Life Radio podcasts are available on all major podcast platforms. And our live radio stream goes out to over 250 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, and other streaming apps. For more information on how you can advertise on the #1 pet podcast and radio network, visit PetLifeRadio.com/advertise today.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com. Oh, Behave is back with more tail-wagging ways to achieve harmony in the household with your pets. Now, back to your fetching host, America's pet edutainer, Arden Moore.
Welcome back to the Oh Behave show on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Arden Moore. We've got a really powerful person behind a microphone now on our show, and she is Dr. Judy Morgan, a holistic veterinarian. She's authored, is it 8 or 9 books?
8.
10?
8.
8. Okay.
I'm at 8.
She has a great podcast. It's easy to find her, drjudymorgan.com. We started this with a little bit of a tough topic, and that is vaccination, to vaccinate or not. And knowledge is good medicine, as you will say. But food is such a fuel. And years ago, I worked at Prevention Magazine and Rodale Press, and I got to learn a lot about I wrote herb books, and I got to meet Eastern medicine folks, and there's part of this globe, Dr. Judy, that has been using Eastern medicine for hundreds of years. Thousands. Well, I was trying to be dramatic. But the point is, here is somebody like you, born in New Jersey.
Not exactly the holistic capital of the world.
No, not at all. But that begs the question. If somebody from New Jersey who is a veterinarian and started to see that I need to shift my focus to integrative and be East and West, can you kind of share that? I mean, what was the light bulb moment for you?
Well, I practiced completely traditional medicine for the first 10 years. And I was a partner in a clinic, and a postcard came across my desk for veterinary orthopedic manipulation. And it talked about how we could help our patients heal faster, and particularly after surgery from like cruciate ligaments and back disease and that sort of thing. And so I thought, well, that sounds good. My partner does cruciate ligament surgeries all the time. He, was a great surgeon, liked to do some cool stuff. And I said, I love surgery, but that wasn't one that I did. And I thought, well, this would be a way for me to, jump on the team and help these animals, even though I'm not the one performing the surgery. So I signed up for it, went to the course, and I walked in, and I was a few minutes late because I got lost. And so things were already going. And after about 40 minutes, I'm sitting there going, I think this guy's talking about chiropractic. I'm not sure.
Ooh, the C word.
The C word. And I mean, I was in such a traditional practice and always a traditional person. And the funny thing is, when I was pregnant for my first child, my son, and about 6 weeks before I was due, he was sitting on my sciatic nerve and I couldn't walk. Made it very difficult to go to work. So I was wheeling myself around on a little doctor stool in the office, trying to work on patients. It didn't go very well. So I got put on bed rest. And, after a few weeks of that, I thought I just wanted to shoot myself. So I found a chiropractor, and I had never been to one. I didn't believe in it, but I found one who specialized in pregnant women, specifically for the kids sitting on the sciatic nerve. And so I literally was like, draped over my husband's shoulder, getting, hobbling in to get there. And after he worked on me one treatment, I ran out of the building, and I was like, that's cool. But, never dawned on me that that was something we should be doing with our animals. So once I got to that course, since I was there and we had paid for it, I was like, well, I'll leave it now. And I stuck it out. And then the very first patient back on, that first Monday morning back, the dog was carried in, couldn't walk. I did my newfound trick on it. And then I went to get the drugs because I was sure the dog was going to need all that traditional stuff. And I turned around and saw the dog run down the hallway, and I went, what happened there?
Wow.
And so it was like a 95-pound shepherd. I was hooked. I just went, oh my gosh. And that just opened the door to alternative, complementary, whatever we want to call it. It opened the door to me. And I said, well, if that was so cool and so powerful, what else is out there?
You can be a diplomat in chiropractic medicine and veterinary, right? Now, finally, it's taken a little bit of time. I think the people from the University of Florida, right?
Florida is actually, they've got Dr. Shea, who owns Chi Institute. So they are big into the Chinese and Eastern medicine.
Oh, okay, that's it.
But there is actually certification sanctioned by AVMA for animal chiropractic. And there's a couple different schools that you can go to now. So, it is. And it's really interesting. It's state by state. So in some states, human chiropractors can work on animals. In other states, they cannot. In some states, you have to be a veterinarian in order to do chiropractic. It's different everywhere. And I know that there's a lot of chiropractors who are treating their human clients, animals, kind of under the radar. And, as long as the thing that they have to realize is that the biodynamics are different. So humans, our bowling ball sits on the top. On our animals, the bowling ball hangs off one end. And so the dynamics are a little bit different. Like for us, we get a lot of compression injury, and the animals, it's totally different. So the biggest thing we see with dogs is, jerking on the leash, come over here. Yep. And, so we're constantly cranking their necks and their heads, harnesses where they're pulling, and then all the different sports that we do with our dogs can cause some serious injuries as well if they're not well conditioned. So I think chiropractic has a huge place in veterinary medicine. I wish more veterinarians would jump on board with it.
I'm never going to look at a bowling ball the same way anymore. You make a good point. So here you are, you're traditionally trained in a practice, but you let yourself be open to new knowledge that may be very century-old knowledge. And I think that's why you have succeeded in the way you have, is because you check things out. Now, I was a newspaper reporter, investigative reporter for 20 years. Best advice I ever got from my crusty editor was, Arden, that's how he talked. If your mother tells you she loves you, check it out. Well, I think if somebody told you something, Dr. Judy Morgan, you're going to check it out. Am I correct?
Let me tell you, I have so many tools in my toolbox and things and supplements and things that I use that clients brought to me. So when I first started doing things that were a little bit alternative, people, the word started getting out. And so people would come in, and a lot of them were people who had already been trying to treat their animals holistically. And I'll never forget the first time a client came in and they didn't want to use, I think we only had Rimadyl was our non-steroidal anti-inflammatory we were using for pain and inflammation. And I didn't have a lot of things alternatively that I knew about at the time. I had a few things. And so this client walked in and they said, oh, I use DGP. And I said, well, what the heck is DGP? She said, it's doggone pain. And I said, okay, quick, let me look up doggone pain. I looked it up, and it was one of the first products that I brought on board. It is still on our shelves in the warehouse. It's a great product. Not that I'm doing a promotion for them, because we have a lot of great products in the warehouse, but that was one a client brought to me and said, what do you think of this? And I can tell you now that almost daily, I have anywhere from 1 to a dozen emails or messages from people saying, check out this product. My vet wants me to use this. My holistic practitioner recommended this, or I found this. Is this any good? What about the ingredients? And so I'm being asked to evaluate products, ingredients all the time. Not to mention that on my desk at any given time are boxes of products from small startup companies or somebody with an idea, and they put something together and they're trying to get their product launched. And so they'll send it to us and say, what do you think of my product? What would you do differently? And I do this with pet food companies as well. My association with All Provide Pet Food started with an email where a client asked me about their ingredients and put me in touch with the company. This was the first year they were in business. And I said, well, if I were doing that food, I would do X, Y, and Z. And so these emails kept going back and forth for quite a while. And a year later, I actually got to meet the people that own the pet food company. And when I went in, they said, here's our new formulations. We did absolutely everything that you said in all of those emails. I said, really? Because I wasn't telling you to do things. I was just saying, well, if I was going to do it, I would make these kinds of changes. This is what as a client, this is what I would be looking for if I wanted to feed that to my pet. And they did all of it. And so, to me, it's kind of fun. And I just had some pre-vet students who came to the office over the weekend. They wanted to take a tour and learn, kind of what we're doing. And they're very much into the holistic thing. And, so when they came in, I said, they said to me, well, who decides now whether a product gets onto your website? Like, who makes that decision? And I said, well, the final say is always mine. But my daughter...
Yeah, your name's on the website.
Yeah, but my daughter is the COO, and she's an engineer, and she's brilliant. And she has gotten so good, and actually most of the people that work for us now, they've gotten so good at reading these labels that a lot of times they'll look at the label and it doesn't even make it to my desk.
Hey, everybody. We're speaking with Dr. Judy Morgan. You got to check out her website, drjudymorgan.com. She does a lot. She writes books. She analyzes. She's a trailblazer. She's a trailblazer because she's a pet advocate, and she's also an advocate for pet parents. So we're going to dive in. We've been teasing her, but we wanted her backstory. And when we come back, we're going to learn a little bit about her latest book, and it is called Yin and Yang 2.0, Nutrition for Dogs, subtitle, Maximizing Health with Whole Foods, Not Drugs. So, everybody, stick around, sit, stay. We'll be right back.
Time for a walk on the red carpet, of course. Oh Behave will be back in a flash right after these messages.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. CATTREETRAY.com.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Hi, this is John O'Hurley reminding you you're listening to the O Behave Show with Arden Moore on Pet Life Radio.
We're back from the lot. Just checked the paper and we had a record showing at the box. The letterbox, that is. Now back to Oh Behave. Here's Arden.
Welcome back to the Oh Behave Show on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Arden Moore. I have one of my all-time favorite veterinarians on the planet right here, and she is Dr. Judy Morgan, and she is a holistic veterinarian, and she keeps going. She's like an Energizer bunny. I don't think you ever run out of energy. So years ago, for those that can see this on my YouTube channel, show your original book if you have it handy.
My very, very first book that I wrote was From Needles to Natural. That was in 2014. And so the 8th book just came out. But in 2017, I wrote Yin and Yang Nutrition for Dogs, Maximizing Health with Whole Foods, Not Drugs.
And there are 2 dogs wearing French berets.
Actually, his is a little Chinese chef's jacket, and hers is a little like old lady apron dress. So they're dressed for cooking.
Are they your dogs?
They have both passed, unfortunately, but that's Myra Sue, and that is George. George just passed in September at the age of 17. So, and he had all kinds of issues, but he was just the happiest little camper in the world. And we had the most fun doing that photo shoot all day to get these guys.
They look happy. So you wrote this book in 2017. But things have accelerated and your knowledge power has accelerated. So you got kind of a demand to say, can we get a 2.0 version of this?
Yep.
So how much new content is the new book, Yin and Yang 2.0?
Part of the difference in the first one in 2017, there are recipes. So this is based on Chinese medicine food therapy. And food therapy goes across all species because everything that we eat is going to affect our body, whether it is going to help resolve phlegm, like mucus. Like when you have a cold and you've got a stuffy nose, there are things that you can eat or drink, different teas and things that are going to help dissolve that and make it go away. There are things that we can eat to help our immune system, things that help our heart, help our kidneys, help our liver. So that's what the recipes are about. So we've got recipes for different kinds of liver disease, kidney disease, heart disease, weight loss, obesity, diabetes, Cushing's, you name it.
Oh my.
So the first book, this guy over here, when I made it, not all the recipes are complete and balanced. It basically lists the foods that are going to help put together a recipe. And then there's a chapter in the back that tells you, okay, these are the things you need to make sure you have. You have to have a calcium supplement in there. You have to have an iodine, a zinc. And so I went through that and, but the problem was a lot of people don't math. A lot of people don't want to think. They just want quick, easy, like tell me everything I need to put in there. Do not make me have to figure it out myself. So I went back and reformulated all the recipes. That's why it says 60 plus new. Reformulated all the recipes and made them complete and balanced for FEDIAF, which is the European standards. It's above the American AFCO standards.
AFCO, wow. And I did a little homework. Wait a minute. This book, ladies and gents, Yin and Yang 2.0, is now the #1 bestseller in small animal veterinary medicine on Amazon. I think it's #4 on dog nutrition, but we're going to blow them away, right?
When it came out, it was #1 in 6 categories.
Oh my gosh. Move over, Oscars. Move over.
It actually made it all the way up. It made it all the way up to number 292 of all 6 million books on Amazon. So Yes, it's very popular.
Well, that shows you the demand, the need, the
Huge
hunger.
demand.
Hunger is the word hunger for good food knowledge for our pets.
And, the thing is, people said, well, I already have this one. Why would I want this one? Well, not only is everything now balanced, but I did an even deeper dive into the Chinese medicine. So besides figuring out your pet's their Chinese medicine personality, what element they are, and that tells you a lot about where their strengths and weaknesses are going to be, both emotionally and physically. So if you have a wood personality dog, they're going to be prone to having liver qi stagnation, frustration, they could have a liver
and eye issues too,
issues, liver blood deficiency, which is tendon and ligament injuries. So cruciate tears. How are we going to prevent those? This tells you.
Well, let me say before you do, because I want people to know how you set up this book, because it's brilliant. So this book is like over 220 some pages, but you kind of give the kind of the background about yin and yang and all that, but then you get into things like fire, water, wood, metal, things like that. And I'm like, what? Is she building a house? Is she building a fire? What is she doing? So you explain that wood kind of represents issues with the liver. Can you explain what about metal?
So metal is lungs and large intestine. Every element has a season, a color, and a organ system that it is involved with. So the color for metal is white. So if we have a metal personality, they're the ones that like all their ducks in a row. These are the dogs that are really, really good at doing obedience because they like to follow the rules. Like, just tell me what the rules are. I'm going to do them. If you don't tell them what the rules are, they are so confused. It's really a problem, and that's how you get them out of balance. Earth animals, they're the big, slow, fat yellow lab. Earth animals tend to be round and yellow foods are what feed them. So if they're too obese, well, then we've got to, kind of tamp down their earth a little bit. And how do we do that?
And keep that pancreas from getting in pain.
Exactly. And we have lots of pancreatitis recipes in here because that's a big problem. So each element has its own organ system, has its own season. And when you know the seasonality, so wood is spring, the color that goes with it is green. So the new green leaves, the new green grass. So it's easy to remember. That's associated with the liver. Well, the liver is very commonly associated with eye problems and with seizures. So when spring starts to roll around, if we have a liver animal and everything is in too much excess because that's their season, their seizures might ramp up, their conjunctivitis, their ear infections, their anal gland problems might be worse in the spring because that's the season when it's at its peak. So there's just so much. And then every element has a mother element that feeds it because the mama always nourishes the baby. So let's say you have an earth element whose digestive system is very weak. Well, we can feed the mother element and the mother element will nourish the child. We also could just feed the child. If we have an element that is excess, so it's got too much stuff going on, like that wood element, if it's in excess, well, then we feed the grandmother to it. So we go back 2 on the cycle. We feed the grandmother and the grandmother disciplines it and says, no, you stay in place. So all of that is explained in here. And so we talk about, if your animal is showing these symptoms, and there's little charts to tick off that. So you fill it out and you go, oh, look, oh my gosh, we've got 10 in that category and 1 everywhere else. Well, I guess this is where our problem is.
Well, I like that because I'm not a veterinarian and your readers may not be, but you also recognize the importance of having knowledge, but also being able to explain it.
Yeah. And so we have more resources on the website, and in the back of the book, we have a whole bunch of resources available, different websites to help people, for people that want yin and yang type nutrition. Like you want to help feed your animal.
Kind of a balance.
Right, in a balance, but you don't want to make your own food. There are also, I think, 3 or 4 different pet food companies now that make different element diets. One of them is my line. It's called Constitutions, made by All Provide. And so there's a lot of information on their website that also, talks about when you would use each one of the diets. And it's really interesting. I had one person, she said, oh, my dog is a wood element, so I bought the wood diet thinking that was what he needed. Well, come to find out, no, her dog actually was too excess in the wood. It had too much going on. And so when she fed the wood diet, the dog got loose stools. And she said, I went back and read stuff again and realized, no, I actually needed to calm down the wood. So she bought the metal diet because metal is the axe that chops down the tree. She bought the metal diet, everything calm, everything perfect stools, the bowel disease, everything was then fine. So it's so powerful. And the great thing is, like, if you screw it up and you pick the wrong one, it's just food. What's the worst if they're already excess, you might make them a little more excess. If they're deficient, they might get a little more deficient. You can see pretty quick changes.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to wrap up with Dr. Judy. She's been very generous with her time, and I'm never going to look at the Tin Man the same way now in The Wizard of Oz. But everybody, please go to her website, drjudymorgan.com. Sit, stay. We'll be right back.
Oh, sure. It's all fun and games until someone ends up in a cone. That's right. We're animals. Deal with it. Pet Life Radio. Live life unleashed.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to the O Behave Show on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Arden Moore. One of my personal heroes is here, and it is Dr. Judy Morgan. And she knows I'm into pet safety, and she's met pet safety cat Casey and pet safety dog Kona, at least on a Zoom call. I want you to know that they're both 10, both doing really well, both eating good food, both getting mental and physical exercise because we've got to work their noodles. Do you sleep?
Depends. Most of my life, I've been an insomniac.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you get some of your best ideas while you're horizontal in bed? I do.
Yeah. Somewhere between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., all kinds of
creative.
The problem is whether or not I remember it when I get up in the morning.
So when you're not saving the world through food and good knowledge on a good traditional Chinese medicine, what does Dr. Judy Morgan do for fun?
Oh, man. I love travel.
Okay.
I love
Give me some places.
Well, I used to love going to the Caribbean, and that was on my vision board this year, and we had to cancel it because my mom fell on our trip out west to do all the canyons. So we didn't get to the Caribbean, but that's one of my favorite places. But I have been invited to speak in Malta in February, so we're going to Malta and Italy. 2 years ago, I got invited to speak in England, so we did England and Scotland. I have a rescue farm with a bunch of farm animals that were at the Kill Pen auction. So I've got 3 donkeys.
Is that in North Carolina?
In North Carolina, yep. So
Okay.
we've got donkeys, mules, miniature horses, miniature mules, chickens, goats, dogs, cats.
So what does it feel like when you're hanging out with a bunch of four-leggers?
It is awesome. For some dumb reason, I have wanted a donkey since I was 6 years old.
Well, don't be a jackass about it. Call it a donkey. All right. So now that you have a donkey,
My sister always wanted horses, and so just to be different, I was like, so I collected, donkey statues and stuff. So I finally got donkeys when I was 62 years old, and
are you glad you did?
I love them. They are
So tell me why. Why donkeys?
well, first of all, their ears are the coolest thing in the world, but they
Move over, corgis.
Yeah, they are so intelligent. And they're guard animals. A lot of people, if you go by a field of cows and you see a donkey out there, that's the guard animal because they protect from coyotes and foxes and those sorts of things. So they're actually really good protectors. The 3 that we got came from the kill pen. The mama donkey had a 1-month-old little Jack. And then the other little girl that we got was supposed to be 3 years old, but she was 3 months. So both of them got raised by the one mama. And it took us 6 months to be able to touch the mama. She had been so abused and neglected. And she's actually going through an issue right now with her feet because we've had her for 3 years, but they were in such bad shape when she came. And now it's, really biting her in the butt.
Or biting her in the hoof.
Oh my gosh. So the vet, after we x-rayed the feet and did everything, the vet said, it would be really better if she wasn't walking around the field with these bandages on her hooves. Can we confine her? And I said, oh yeah, we've got this little run out. We can confine her in. And, the other ones are never out of her sight because it's a 20-acre farm, but they're always in sight. Well, they got far enough away that she wanted to join them and she tried to go over the fence. She didn't make it. She got halfway over. And luckily, someone was working on the farm and saw her hung up on the fence and had to lift her off. And luckily, this person happened to be big enough to be able to lift her off the fence. But now the 3 donkeys are having to all 3 of them be confined because she is now on lockdown and has to have bandage changes every day. And so that's what I do in my spare time.
What is her name?
Mama Ella. Ella is so
Mama
cute.
Ella. This is Arden talking to you. We want you to heal and heal completely and fast. And you got your kids with you. And you got Dr. Judy Morgan. So you couldn't have picked a better script for healing path. Would you agree, Dr. Judy?
Yeah, and she's so sweet. She's the sweetest one now, and just she's so trusting. But they're funny. If a stranger comes to the farm, if you have a carrot, you'll probably get them to come over. Otherwise, they're going to keep their distance and they're going to check you out and make sure that you're not there to do anything bad. They're just really protective. They're pretty funny.
What about in the house? What kind of critters do you have?
In the house, we have 2 English toy spaniels, a Cavalier King Charles, a blind, mostly deaf Cocker Spaniel, and 2 indoor kitties.
Okay. I've always been told that the Cavalier, which is kind of like a dressed up Cocker Spaniel, is called the love sponge. What does that mean? And is that true?
It is absolutely true. They just want to always be in your presence. They always want to be touching you. So this little guy is Forrest.
In the cover of the cover of the book, Yin and Yang 2.0.
That's
Nutrition
Forrest.
for dogs. Oh, hi, Forrest.
And he's actually laying in a crate right next to me. And Forrest is 3, and Forrest had to get his own name stamp for signing the books. So that is his paw print. So you can get a signed copy from Forrest if you would like.
Okay. That's a deal. I know what I'm going to be doing. Okay.
So he's 3 now, and I did one of those really weird things. I got my dog a dog because the other 2 dogs are older, and so we adopted another English toy spaniel who is 4 days older than him. So, and they've been together.
What's this one's name?
That is Gilly. And they are best buddies. They're like brothers. They fight and they play and they're rough and then they sleep on top of each other and they are inseparable. It's really funny. And Forrest had an older friend and that one passed, and then he was kind of despondent. So we got him somebody his own age and size, and oh my gosh. So I'm now a big fan of Get Your Dog a Dog.
I like it. Any parting message? I want everyone to please get their paws on Dr. Judy Morgan's new book, Yin and Yang 2.0, Nutrition for Dogs. What's a parting message you could give us two-leggers, us humans?
Raising Naturally Healthy Pets and Keeping Your Pets Naturally Healthy, my other 2 books. For those who are not as familiar with the holistic way of thinking, start with Raising Naturally Healthy Pets. And then, because that one talks about, how to find the right veterinarian, how to talk to your veterinarian, particularly if you have different thoughts and ideas. Do you need a trainer? How to find that trainer? How to house train? And this is for dogs and cats. And then Keeping Your Pets Naturally Healthy is also dogs and cats. That one has over 40 recipes in it for not necessarily from a Chinese medicine standpoint, more from a health standpoint. Like we've got pancreatitis or liver disease or whatever, but it has a lot of natural therapies and alternatives. So it talks about traditional therapies that are available and what you could do as an alternative to them. So both also really, really popular. My parting words for pet owners: never stop learning. Always ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions of your veterinarian. Don't be afraid to say, are there any side effects to that medication? Is that medication going to play well with this other medication? Particularly if you're at an emergency service or a new veterinarian that they don't know your pet and all the different things that they might have going on, really ask questions. When you go to the pharmacy and get a medication, you get a big, long thing that explains all the side effects, the interactions. We never do that in veterinary medicine. Please ask, because I can tell you, if you knew the potential side effects, particularly a lot of these new drugs that are coming out that have very serious side effects that you're not told about, and half the time the veterinarians don't know the side effects either, which is really sad. But the same thing happens in human medicine, by the way.
That's right. Yeah. No, knowledge is power. This is good. Hey, everybody, I have been honored to have on our show Dr. Judy Morgan. She knows her stuff, and she's there for you and your pet. Please go to drjudymorgan.com. At this time, I want to give a shout out to my producer, Mark Winter. He is the surgeon of sound. We are on the largest pet radio network on the planet, and I'm going to sound old, but we have been on the air since '07. '07, everybody, when no one knew what a podcast was. So we are the longest running weekly pet podcast on the planet. I know probably my mouse that I use on my computer probably has their own podcast now, but please tune in to ours, as well as to Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets podcast. And so check out my e-newsletter. Go to ardenmoore.com, my YouTube. Woohoo! I'm finally monetizing. Yeah, baby, party on. And please consider taking one of my Pet First Aid for You programs, veterinary approved. Kona and Casey, my shelter alums, help me. And everything is fun, practical, and up to date because there's new protocols for CPR that we're sharing. So until next time, this is your flea-free host, Arden Moore, delivering just 2 words to all you 2, 3, and 4-leggers out there. Oh, behave.
Coast to coast and around the world, it's Oh Behave with Arden Moore. Find out why cats and dogs do the things they do and get the latest buzz from wagging tongues and tails in Rin Tin Tinseltown. From famous pet experts and best-selling authors to television and movie stars, you'll get great tail-wagging pet tips and have a fur-flying fun time. All Behave with America's pet edutainer, Arden Moore. Every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.